But the exhaustion, the likelihood for exhaustion and a snapback, the volatility that embodies that trend, will often create kind of unpredictable or no follow-through. Okay? So with that in mind, if I'm going to play a breakout or breakdown type strategy, which when I was developing AutoChartist University and we were doing some of the educational material, one of the issues that we found early on was that traders just didn't have strategies specific to the patterns. So I wanted to have easy to remember names for my 4 entry strategies. These are all reflective of my personal entry strategies because I trade momentum, I trade trend reversals, I trade swing trade or trend following, and then I also trade inside the range. The 2 of the AutoChartist entries that are applicable to sideways markets are the AIM entry, which stands for AutoChartist initial, you can call it initial momentum or initial movement, I don't care what you want to call it. There's the AIM entry and there is the AIR entry. And I try to keep these in names that everybody would remember easily. So it's the AutoChartist initial movement and the AutoChartist inside the range. So AIM and AIR are the 2 entry types that apply to sideways markets. What is an AIM entry? An AIM entry is when the market is moving in a less volatile sideways range and I've developed or formed a sideways pattern, again, triangle, channel, triangle, rectangle, pennant, triple top, triple bottom, double top, double bottom. Okay? When I formed a sideways pattern, basically anything but what? A channel, anything but a falling or rising wedge, anything but a head and shoulders with a steep neckline is a sideways pattern that we'll be considering for an AutoChartist initial movement entry. Now, momentum entries are entries where ideally the market has begun to consolidate. The difference between consolidation and congestion: congestion is a wider, more volatile sideways range. Consolidation, as the name implies, consolidate. Prices are narrowing in range, less volatility. I want that consolidation market. Okay? How do I identify that? 1 to 3 AutoChartist initial trend bars. 1 to 3. So notice I have 3 initial trend bars here on this particular pattern alert. Now the volatility has dropped. I can see prices squeezing within this triangle pattern. They're not completely flat, otherwise we'd probably see 1 bar, 2 bars of the initial trend. And there's probably a little bit more volatility than even the 3 bar would suggest because of, we know the fundamentals that are swirling about this market. We can't ignore those. Even though we're focusing probably 80% of our attention on a price pattern-based approach using chart patterns and the AutoChartist, we can't ignore the fact that even in a 1 to 3 initial trend type environment, there is a higher sense of volatility because the psychology, the fundamentals surrounding the euro, any pair that has the euro currency, single currency involved, will have more volatility because of all the information coming out of Europe and the ECB and the EU and the IMF and Greece and Ireland and Portugal and Spain and Italy, right? It just goes on and on. We're dealing with a volatile currency here, therefore there's going to be more volatility implied. Not necessarily only price-based, but we have to respect the fundamentals, right? So the 3 bar does give me an idea that we're squeezing down in volatility, okay? And for those of you that are asking, what is the color coding candles? What's the indicator that I'm using to paint the candles? That is a personal indicator that I use, and I do make it freely available to everybody. It's called GRAB, my GRAB candles. GRAB stands for green, red, and blue. Green, red, and blue. And you know, all these indicators were developed for me by my programmers or friends of mine who I knew before I started writing books and teaching more publicly. So they all have kind of unusual names, I realize. Had I known eventually that I'd be teaching and showing people these indicators, I would probably have done what everybody else seems to do, which is name the indicator after themselves. But anyways, we used to call this the GRAB indicator here in my office. That's the internal name, and that's the name I'm sharing with you guys. Green, red, and blue. So they're GRAB candles. So what happens is the candles are painted according to where they close in relation to my 34 EMA wave. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that tool. You can overlay both these on your MT4 platform. The 34 EMA wave is a Fibonacci-based set of exponential moving averages. It's the 34 period EMA on the high, the 34 period EMA on the low, and the 34 period EMA on the close. So it's 3 separate moving averages that you can actually set up on your own right through the MT4 platform by inserting 3 exponential moving average indicators on that setting, that 34 setting. If you want to download the plug-in version, and this is just, again, this is my personal website. I don't want to spend too much time on this topic because our topic is AutoChartist, but when we're talking about market trends, I do want to share with you how I determine market trends along with the initial trend. You can head on over to my personal blog, which is roggihorner.com, and do a search for what I call the GRAB 2.0, okay? And so I'm going to kind of put an end to our discussion of this tool here. You can read about it at my blog. I want to focus in on the chart patterns and what we want to do next with either the AIM or the AIR entry. Okay, so again, the AutoChartist initial movement or momentum entry and the AutoChartist inside the range. They are 2 entries that I look to employ in a sideways market, but which do you choose? Well, part of that is going to be based upon, obviously, the initial trend. Part of it's going to be based upon also the pattern type that you get. Okay? So, again, first of all, if you're trading a non-trending pattern, I hope you realize you have to focus on non-trending market environments regardless of the time frame. Okay? So, in terms of the identification of the individual time frames market trend. If the initial trend tells me that I've got 3 bars or less, I'm going to be focusing in on the AIM entry. So 1 to 3 initial trend bars, I'm going to focus on the AIM entry, which means I'm going to be waiting for momentum through the uptrend line support or the downtrend line resistance. And what I like to do, and this is kind of a coiled spring setup, prices are being squeezed, and eventually when they explode out of it, I want to be a buyer if prices explode higher through the resistance of the pattern, and I want to be a seller if prices explode lower down the support. So, or lower through the support. I like to confirm the pattern break, and this is something that I just personally like to use as a filter. So I'm filtering the time frames to find out which market environment is ideal for the pattern result. I'm again filtering the actual entry as well. If you notice, the filtering process is a very important process as a trader. You have to constantly basically test the market to see that it's behaving in the way that you feel it's going to. And the only way to do that really is to filter its movement or check its movement with different types of tools. So I like to utilize an MACD histogram based upon the signal line. Now in the MT4 platform, or on the MT4 platform, if you go down to the indicators and the oscillators heading, you'll see an indicator called the moving average of oscillator. And this is essentially simply an MACD histogram based upon the signal line. Okay? You don't have to worry about the actual calculation, but what I want to make sure that you do understand is the way I use it is simply in what I call an on or off method, which is visually, when I look at this indicator, it's either trading above the zero line or below the zero line. If I'm going to trade a short entry, at the time prices are breaking down through the uptrend line support, I want to see a negative MACD reading. In other words, that these bars are plotting below the signal line. If, hypothetically, we were getting ready to break up higher through the triangle, I want to see a positive MACD, or these bars plotting above the signal line. Okay? So that's the filter that I like to use. Again, exclusively for AIM entries, Auto Chartist Initial Movement. Auto Chartist Initial Movement entries are for those sideways patterns that are forming in a 1 to 3 bar initial trend. So a sideways market. So think about the markets that are moving sideways right now. We do have a lot of markets that are moving sideways right now because with the confusion that we're seeing in the marketplace regarding how the European debt problem is going to be solved and watching it expand into all the other countries, the PIIGS countries, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Spain. You know, we were warned about these well over a year ago, and now we're finally seeing all those warnings become a tangible reality. Okay? Take a look at this dollar-yen chart. Everyone has seen the recent breakdown in the dollar-yen, have they not? So this is a complete pattern, as you can tell, because we have not only the breakout reading on the Auto Chartist window here, but we also have the forecast area highlighted on the chart. Let me show you how you can move this honeydew colored information window to any part of your screen.